Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to Revelations with Rowena. Dr. Rowena Winkler, and I am so excited to have my beautiful guest with me here today, Serita. It's been so understanding. I was just saying before we started recording this that we actually had to reschedule our time together because back when we were originally supposed to talk was when I got COVID. For folks of you that don't know, I got COVID at the start of June, and here we are at the end of June. But everything is divine timing. I'm so excited to talk to you about the work that you're doing. And welcome, Sarita.
No, thank you so much as well too, and just to be able to get back in because as we were talking here and everything, we've been some very busy people, and we still want to make sure that we're able to go ahead and get out here and have these conversations and also talk and just see how we can help others as well too, which I know that's our common goal here, as well,
Right.
being of service to others and seeing how we can assist.
Yes, yes, yes. So, with that said, you talking about being of service, I'd love to know your story, your journey to
Mhm.
get to where you are now in being of service and helping others.
Yes, I was going to say the irony is that we're actually coming up on the anniversary of the accident that occurred that actually
Oh,
put me into this world.
wow.
And so my accident actually was July 4th, 2016.
Mm.
And I was rear-ended by a drunk driver at a stoplight. So I was in the area where the speed limit was 25. She was going at least 60.
Oh my goodness.
So you can imagine the impact not only on my vehicle, but also my body as well.
Mm.
And initially, when the accident occurred, I thought it was okay. I even called because it was a Thursday. And the irony is, like earlier that day, I was like, I really don't want to go to work tomorrow. And this is not the way. I did not want to have to go to work tomorrow. But what
Wow.
ended up happening is that I called my supervisor the next morning and, explained what happened. And she's like, are you sure you want to come into work? Because I told her, I'm like, I just got to go get the rental car, just being a mom mode. Like, okay, I got to do this, and this. And,
Yes.
when I'm done, I'll be fine and everything. And so I get to work and I sit down. And before I can say anything, she looks at me and she says, I need you to go to urgent care or the ER. I was shaking and I was turning red. I was going into shock right
Oh
there.
my gosh.
So I left and I went to urgent care, which luckily was like just literally around the corner. So I just drove myself over there. They checked me out and they're like, okay, looks like you have severe whiplash. We'll give you these 3 medications to take. Reach out to your doctor and see if you can get in next week so they can check you out and see what's going on. And they're
Mhm.
like, and so we'll take you back out here and we'll just talk to whoever brought you here and let them know what's going on. And I just was like, that would be me. I drove myself and they're like, you should not be driving, ma'am. Like you just had like a very, a severe accident. And I'm like, well, I
Mhm.
don't have anyone, at the time to be able to
Mhm.
go ahead and actually, pick me up and take me because we were, talking before. I just got divorced the year prior. So that relationship is not where it's at now for lack of, a better term.
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
with an ex-boyfriend at the time where he was at work himself. So it's like I really didn't have anyone else. My son was like off at football camp. So like there's really
Yeah.
literally no one. So I'm like, okay, I promise you guys I will drive myself home. I will call you right away, let you guys know I made it, which I did. And then after that, I called my doctor, which my doctor's been my doctor for over 20 years, and I got the backdoor number. So I called and said, hey, this is what happened. He's like, yeah, you'll be my first patient Monday morning, 8 a.m. I'll see you then.
Mhm.
Well, I barely made it through the weekend. I was in so much pain. And it's
Oh
like the pain I've
man.
never felt before in my life, where it was coming. I was noticing radiating from like my right shoulder going down my arm. And then I also
Mm.
noticed it in my upper back and my upper neck.
Mm.
And so I went in to see him and he was like, I have never seen you like this before. And side note, this is actually the 4th car accident I've been in. Every time I've been hit by someone. So
Oh my goodness.
keep that in the back of your mind as well too. And so he's like, let me go ahead. I want to schedule you to see a specialist. And that actually began the year of specialists, where I was going to every single person under the sun,
Oh my.
trying to figure out, what was going on. I was doing physical therapy, chiropractor, massage therapist, acupuncture, you name it, I did it. And nothing was working. And I was actually getting worse.
Oh
And
no.
every time I was leaving out of a specialist, I was prescribed another medication.
Mm.
So it got to a point where in the middle of my journey, I was on about roughly 7 or 8 medications on a daily basis. and my pain was around an 8 or 9 on the pain scale on a daily basis.
Oh my
I was
goodness.
barely getting any kind of rest. And as I mentioned, I'm a mom of 3. And so
Yeah.
at the time, my youngest, which is 12 now, she was 5. My other one was like almost 11. And then my oldest was 17 going on 18.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, we got to, try to figure something out. But in the meanwhile, I'm just still constantly, doing as I'm being told to do. And as I'm starting to deteriorate, I'm noticing that the pain is starting to go throughout my whole body. And so now, they're still constantly having me trying, different specialists and talking. And I was on a 6-month wait list to see an orthopedic surgeon. So I finally got in to see him, which he did some more tests. And like I came in, he's like, oh, we're just going to do some more tests. And I just started laughing because I'm like, okay, that's what you guys have been doing anyway. So I'm like, if you find something great, if you don't, it is what it is. Well, he did another MRI and CT and discovered I had bone chip spurs going into my nerves in my right shoulder. And he was
Oh,
saying that is where the pain was coming from.
wow.
Yes. So then from there, he was like, you have to have surgery to get these removed. And I'm like, okay, fine. So now I'm on another waiting list for another 4 months again. So mind you, still going through all this, all this
Gosh.
pain. And on top of that, I'm just like, okay, there's, like I said, still continuously deteriorating. And I reached out to my parents because my parents live in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I also reached out was because my mom was a retired orthopedic nurse. So a perfect
Mm-hmm.
person for me to ask, like, hey, should I really do this? Yes or no? And she's
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, go ahead and do it, but don't worry about it. You'll be fine. I'll come up and take care of you and everything will be okay. Well, after that, I'm like, okay, so kind of going through the waiting. And my mom, all of a sudden, I'm noticing is starting to get sick. And I'm like, Mom, what's going on? And she's like, well, I have walking pneumonia. I'm like, okay, well, we need to figure out what's going on, why this is happening. And with the walking pneumonia, she also had already had diabetes because she had unfortunately had breast cancer back when I was in high school and she
Wow.
recovered from it. But from the different, from the radiation and everything, she ended up having diabetes type 2. But now she started to develop type 1. So she had 1 and 2, and then also pneumonia going on. So I started to go back and forth between here and Florida with her to doctor's appointments just to figure out what's going on.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so then February, I was there with her and I said, okay, do you want me to come? Because I was coming in the beginning of the month at this point. And I was like, do you want me to go ahead and come in the beginning of March because it's your, you guys' wedding anniversary because it was 54 years. I said, or, do you want me to come the end of March? So that way you can come with me, for the beginning of April for my surgery. And she's like, yeah, just schedule everything for then, And so I purchased her ticket and everything, had everything together, good to go. And then all of a sudden, my dad calls me the day after the wedding anniversary. When he calls me, I start to automatically apologize because I didn't get a chance to call them on their anniversary because I was busy with kids and everything. So I
Sure.
answered the phone like, hey, and then I stopped talking. I heard an ambulance in the background.
Oh no.
And I'm like, Dad, what's going on? And he's like, your mom was a little unresponsive. And so your cousin called. And I'm like, wait a minute, back up. There's no little unresponsive. You either are or aren't. So he's kind of like trying to, kind of like lessen
Yeah.
it with me. But I said, okay, keep me posted on what's going on. And I could hear my mom talking in the background. So I didn't think things were too bad because I could hear her fussing, saying, oh, you're doing this wrong. And, it's kind of being like a retired nurse, trying
As moms do. Yep. Yep.
trying to tell them what to do. And so my dad was like, call a little bit later and see how things are going. So I called a little bit later. My dad's like, oh, well, she's asleep, just call tomorrow. And, so far things look okay. I called the next day. She's in a medically induced coma. I don't know what happened between that point and there, but they ended up putting her into a medically induced coma. She had a feeding tube and a breathing tube.
My
So
goodness.
I'm trying to now get down to Florida because I'm like, okay, this was completely unexpected.
Yeah.
And with me being on disability at the time because of everything that happened, I actually had to get approval from my doctor to actually be able to go ahead and go because it was, things with disability and stuff. So I would be able to go ahead and go. Finally got that approval, went down there, and I spent the last 3 days with her before she transitioned. So I actually lost my mom 3 weeks before my surgery to get the repairs done. And so now I'm an only child. So I had to plan the funeral. My dad completely checked out because, like I mentioned, it was their 54th wedding anniversary. They didn't even get a chance to celebrate or anything. They're actually supposed to go out that evening when all this happened. They're supposed to go ahead and do all that. And
Mm.
so it was very difficult because, number one, I'm still at 8 or 9 on the pain scale, losing my best friend. And then also, to having to come back up here, go back down, with kids and everything.
Yeah.
A lot of moving parts. So
Mhm.
I did all that, came back up here, had my surgery. And after I had my shoulder surgery, I lost the motor functions in my right hand. I was not told that that could be a possibility because only 3% of the population has something like that happen.
Oh my
And I
God.
got to be part of the lucky 3. So now I had to go through physical therapy to be able to basically relearn how to write, brush my teeth, comb my hair, basically everything that you take for granted. And on top of that, I was still in pain.
Yes.
And so I was on like a 5 or 6 on the pain scale at that point now. And I'm like, okay, there's something else
Oh
has
my
to give.
goodness.
And they're like, well, we could try surgery again. And I'm like, no. I said, you guys have one shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
done.
No.
And so from there, I ended up basically being graduated into pain management protocol, which for me was a fancy way of saying, here's your next set of pills, because now they added on additional 7 medications. So now I'm on 15 medications on a daily basis, taking about around 30 pills a day. And I did finally receive some diagnoses, excuse me. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia,
Hmm.
myofascial pain syndrome, degenerative disc disease in my neck, chronic migraines, and nerve damage. And so they were saying that the medications that I was on was basically symptom control for everything that was going on at that time. And I'm still continuing now to deteriorate once again. And I deteriorated to the point where I went to one of my doctor's visits, and he looked at me and he says, I need you to start getting your paperwork together. Your son is going to have to be your caretaker. Minding my son now is a senior in high school, getting ready to graduate and go to college to play football.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so I'm like, no, this is not how this is supposed to go at all.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so the next day, I had a complete mental breakdown. I was like, you know what? I just was like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be here. Like, I went through all the different. So now I'm
Yeah,
like
of
dealing with
course.
severe depression, anxiety, and now suicidal thoughts. And I'm like, okay, what can I do? And so I literally had, well, I should say, prior to the breakdown, I dropped my younger 2 kids to school. My son was already driving, so I don't have to worry about him. So I'm
Mhm.
just here, like literally just breaking down, crying, like everything. And I'm like, something's got to give. And I just paused. I was praying, meditating, just everything. And then all of a sudden, my phone dings. I'm like, okay, it's just a message, whatever. But then I took a step back further. I'm like, well, no, that's a deeper message. Like, why haven't you done any research on any of the things that these different doctors and specialists have been saying to you to figure out what you can do as far as for helping yourself? And
Mm.
so I basically just fell into the rabbit hole of Google as far as trying to research everything. Was almost, late getting the kids from school and everything, because I just was like stuck in it, because I was like, okay,
Yeah.
something else has to give. And so I basically took over the science experiment. And so I went ahead and changed my nutrition, worked on my stress management because I had none, didn't even know what that was, at that point. Worked on being able to go ahead and get rest and sleep, which those are actually 2 different things. Also, to worked on the mental healing along with the physical, because I did start to see a therapist through pain management protocol, which was an amazing experience, surprisingly there, which I'll tell a brief story about that. I went to see her for the first time, and I had just dropped my kids off to school. I pull into the parking lot. I'm a bawling, crying mess, because my
Mm.
mindset is like, okay, they think I'm crazy. They're going to take my kids away. And to give a side note, I had already had to fire 3 physicians because they were all telling me, one told me that it was in my head. Another one told me that I don't look like I'm in pain.
No.
No way that you could be functioning at an 8 or 9 on the pain scale on a daily basis.
Ugh.
And the top one, which this one you're going to love, he looks at me and he says, I'm looking at your file and I noticed that you had your middle child natural childbirth. I don't understand how you can be in so much pain right now. And I looked at him and I'm like, okay, so first of all, you're trying to compare apples to oranges.
Yeah.
And not to mention, you're a man. You don't know what it feels like to have a menstrual cramp, let alone go into labor and actually have a child. So I'm like, me and you cannot work together. Like this is it's clearly not going to go ahead and work. So I had to go ahead and
Mhm.
fire him. So having that, having all those,
Sure.
triggers really, happen to me. Now going to see a therapist, I'm like, okay, they're going to take my kids away. That was just the automatic thing that I thought of. And so like
Mm.
I had, messed up, face, makeup and everything. So like I'm looking at the time, like, okay, I gotta get in here. So like clean my face up, put, concealer on and everything to try to, cover up the redness and everything. And I go in and she's talking to me and she notices I'm like, they're still like quiet, but still kind of sharing a little bit. And she asked me, she's like, well, can I touch you? And I'm like, I don't know where this is going, but okay. And so she, grabbed my hand and she said, I'm here to help you. I
Mm.
know you've been through a lot of stuff in a very short period of time that you have not even been able to decipher, heads and tails,
Process.
from everything that's going on. She's like, no one is going to take your kids away. And I automatically started crying because I didn't even say anything about that. Like I
Yeah, she knew.
literally just felt it and she just knew. And so I was like, okay, I'm now. And she also told me too, she's like, you're in a safe space right now. It's okay. And that was all the things that I needed to hear because unfortunately going
Mhm.
through all this, I never heard anyone say any of those things. It was
Nope.
always a lot of negativity and being like, okay, this is not really happening, this is not, you know,
Yeah.
you're gonna be okay. All these different no, actually take it back. You're not gonna be okay. You're just gonna continue to deteriorate.
Yeah.
This is what your life is gonna be like. You just need to get used to it. Like I'm hearing all these different things like that. So to have someone to just say, hey, I'm listening to you, I'm hearing what you're saying, that was a huge piece for me. And that really helped me to work through the mental aspects of it. And then
Mhm.
I also too went ahead and reincorporated movement back into my life as well. Because even prior to my accident, I used to work out like 6 days a week. And
Wow.
so my doctor had actually said to me that because of me working out and and having such a healthy regimen before my accident, he was like, you really should have broke your shoulder and actually had several, bones broken, but because of how strong your body was at the time,
Yeah.
he's like, that's why you had the bone chip spur situation go on. So I'm like,
Mm.
okay. So, I basically, like I mentioned, put all those pieces together. And within 4 months, I was able to get off of all the medications I was on and then also drop the 50 pounds I gained. So,
Wow.
yes. So from there, I was like, okay, well, what can I do now going forward? Because I recognized that when I was going to those different doctor's appointments and I'm seeing the different, specialists and things that are helping me, none of them look like me or you. I didn't see
Mhm.
anyone that was a person of color, at all, or a woman. I finally saw like one woman out of all of them, which still was not a person of color. And then, but when I'm sitting in the waiting room, everyone there looks like me and you. And I'm like, okay,
Mm.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's not how things are supposed to be
Yes.
going. And so that was me, that kind of clicked into my mind like, okay, you know what? Here is where you're needed. Here's where you can go ahead and actually assist
Mm.
people. And so I went ahead and went back to school and got my master certification for health and life coaching, also transformational coach. I'm currently working on my trauma certification as well, and then also chronic pain certification too, to add on with everything that I'm already doing. And so that in essence is how I got into this realm here, what was a fortunate slash unfortunate accident that brought me to where I am today.
Wow, what a story, Sarita. So, okay, so your anniversary is coming up. So it was
Mhm.
July 4th, 2016.
Correct.
How much time had elapsed between the accident to this final piece of it with the therapist and making the change? How long was that?
That was like maybe about a year and a half or so, I want to say.
Wow.
But when I finally was like, okay, this is it, this is what I'm doing, it took me 4 months. When I just was like, okay, that's it. When I started like doing the research and everything, and I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
slowly started doing things. So, for example, like my nutrition, I went gluten free, dairy free, anti inflammatory to get the inflammation out of my body. And that was also
Mhm,
during the time where I was getting off of some of the medications. And there was like a
mhm.
couple of medications that I didn't know actually make you hold on to weight. And so, like, when I got off of two medications, I dropped like 20 pounds within a week just from getting off of them. And I was like, that was it? Like,
Yeah.
that's all I need to do. But
Yeah, but I mean, that's such a powerful example of, as you mentioned, right? A lot of us just go along with what the doctors tell us or prescribe to us, and we aren't so empowered to look into what we're taking and what alternative ways could could work instead to get you healthy. So that's just such a powerful story. And oh my goodness, can we just talk about, I mean, the research has shown it. There's been so many stories. I've experienced it. My friends have experienced it. This whole like people of color don't experience as much pain. Like, what the hell is
Right.
that about?
Yeah, that's
So
it.
annoying. It's so irritating.
It is, but it's really something that unfortunately it goes back to slavery times,
Yeah.
honestly, where they're, trying to use that as a basis to be like, hey, let's go ahead and, your skin is thicker, because you're a person of color. And that even like, I think it was actually around the time of my accident, they had just done a survey where they're talking to like first and second year medical students that still like about maybe I want to say 40% still believed that that was true. And I'm like, okay, that was 2016. That's not that long ago, as far as for hearing that
Yeah.
statistic that people are still thinking. And it's like, it's not okay. Like, no one's skin is thicker than anyone else's. We all have the same thickness. It's just that we do have different, everyone has different pain receptors on how,
Yeah.
how much they're able to go
Sure.
ahead and endure. But it's like, no, that is not true. It's so many different things that are going on right now that it's just like it's sad, but at the same time, it's something that needs to, a light needs to be shown on it. I
Yeah.
mean, I even was like looking at because I'm a big nerd, so I love reading and like looking into statistics and things like that.
Yeah.
And even looking at the United States, for example, in 2020, and this was actually pre-pandemic,
Okay.
they did a survey just to see, how people with chronic pain are actually affecting, the just affecting society. And so
Mhm.
the thing is that it was actually about roughly, and this is in the business sector, there's actually $300 billion in lost wages for people that are living with chronic pain because they can't work.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how hard it's really affecting the economy, but no one's
Mm.
really talking about it. They're kind of just, throwing a blind eye. And I'm seeing now that because unfortunately with COVID, there are people that are having long COVID, and part of long COVID is chronic pain. And so now they're starting to kind of look at it a little bit more, but it's still, it's a lot of stigma that's, associated with it because oftentimes, people are thinking that, oh, you're trying to go get medication, which that's like, no, I don't want meds. Like that's one thing.
Right.
A lot of people don't want meds. And so they assume that
Yeah.
they just have to live with it, not knowing what things that they can actually do that are within their control to be able
Mm.
to go ahead and manage it. And that's the
Mm.
big piece that, with me, everything I'm doing is lifestyle. So I'm not doing
Mm.
something that's, I'm not using any kind of medications or anything like that. The only thing that I do, offer is organic CBD oil because I'm an
Mm.
affiliate with Navita. And
Mhm.
that was something that just kind of happened to be a fluke. It just literally was like one day I was on Instagram and I saw it and I've tried CBD in the past and it didn't work for me. And I'm
Mm.
like, okay, I need to find something that can bridge me, as I'm going through this transition of getting off these medications. And so I, bought a small bottle of it and I was getting ready. I would notice these signs of me starting to develop a migraine that will normally turn into like a fibro flare and everything. So I'm like, okay, this is not good. So I'm like sitting here recognizing it.
Yeah.
And I literally had the CBD bottle and I had my rescue migraine medication next to it. I'm like, okay, we're going to go ahead and try this. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work. I got this. I'm good.
Mhm.
I took the CBD and within 10 minutes, my migraine was gone. And
Mm.
I'm like, this has never happened before.
Mm.
Weird. Maybe it's a placebo. I don't know. You just kind of go through
Mm.
those sort of things. I'm like,
Sure,
okay,
sure, of course.
we'll kind of see. But then I recognized too that I didn't also have the rebound headache that I normally would have after using the medication as well too. And so I
Mm.
said, okay, let me go ahead and just kind of watch this and just see. And from that point on, I've been using that. And I was like, okay, I'm a person that I got to try something first. I don't just recommend stuff to people.
Sure,
And I'm like,
sure.
okay, if it works for me, that's why I decided to become an affiliate with them and really bring it into my program when I'm working with clients. And the thing is, I don't push it on people by any means. I just say, here's, an option that's available
Sure.
outside of us looking at different supplements and things that they can take as far as for, they're within their diet and everything that's within
Mhm.
reason that can be able to go ahead and help them out. And I definitely try to partner with doctors and things like that too, because often I've run into some good doctors that have actually want their clients to kind of get off of stuff. So then they're like, okay, well, yeah, if you're able to, figure out some different things, pretty much go for it. And so
Mhm.
that's been something that's been very encouraging that, there are ones that, so I always say, it's not just, not all doctors are bad, just like anything else, it's
Of
the same
course,
thing.
yeah.
You do run into your good ones, but unfortunately I also ran into a lot of bad ones as well.
Mm.
So recognizing that and being like, okay, let's see what other alternatives are available.
Well, you had 18 months of experience dealing with different specialists and doctors, so
Mhm.
a wide range of variety and having to fire a couple due to the advice that you were getting.
Yeah.
So when it comes to working with your clients, how does that process start? Is it someone that's experiencing chronic pain and just looking for help? What are your offerings look like, or what does that entail?
Very good question. So initially, it is usually a person that's gotten to the point where like they've tried different things and they're like, okay, none of this is working. I want to look for another alternative that's available to me.
Mm.
I've also had some people that have had like chronic pain for years. I've had some people that are just starting, their journey, and so it kind of just varies on where they're at. The biggest piece that I often, my first question I usually ask is, do you believe that you can heal? Because the thing is,
Oh.
like, if you don't believe that you can heal, no
Yes.
matter what I do or say, it's not going to penetrate.
Mhm.
It's not gonna resonate
Yes.
with you.
Yes,
So
yes.
if you believe that, then we can go ahead and do a consultation, which I have a hour-long consultation where we go
Mhm.
through like three main parts, which is definitely like a series of questions, but it goes through where are you at, where do you want to be, and what's stopping you. And
Mm.
I actually go ahead and I customize a plan for each one of my clients. So no one has
Mm.
the same program. It's all
Mm.
based off of, what their concerns are. And so, for
Mhm.
example, they could have like, and I'm just throwing a number out here, not saying anyone has had this many, but like, let's say they have like 10 concerns. And I'm
Sure.
like, okay, this is how long it's going to take for us, to work through these. Do you want to do this or do you want to do your top three? We really just,
Yeah.
develop it together. And then from there, we will work on a weekly basis going through each of their concerns and just working through it.
Mm.
And I hold them accountable. I give them, quote unquote homework, if they're able to go ahead
Sure.
and do and work on. And then we also stay in communication with each other as well, too. So like I give them like a certain, window of opportunity, whether it's via email or text, or I'm looking into using a particular app right now that I'm testing out. So then
Mhm.
that way we can go ahead and stay in contact. Cause I've had clients before that, they might be at the grocery store and I might have given them a list of different supplements and they're like, well, I don't see this, but I see this. And I'm like, well, send me a picture, like I do like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, help them to be able to go ahead and find those different things. And so that's definitely been, beneficial, for them. And that way, then they're able to go ahead and get their needs met. And of course, I still have my boundaries and everything too, because I'm still a mom, I've still got my own life and everything, as well. And so I just make sure that I'm still accessible to them, but then also still having, my life and everything as well too. Because, it's not always just chronic pain. I still like to have fun and do all the other, regular things that everyone else does too. And so
Yeah.
I make sure that I share, different tips and tricks and things, even on my Instagram. So, like, for example, when we just had like Memorial Day, I did a
Mhm.
big thing about water because I had a bunch of different, like, and it's a reel that I have. I had a bunch of different, like, alcohol in front of me. And I said, you might be drinking this and maybe this or this. But I said, please make sure whatever you do, drink this.
I love that. I'll have to check it out.
Right. I'm like, just go ahead and make sure that you're, getting water in because unfortunately, when you're drinking alcohol, that creates inflammation in your body, which then
Wow.
in turn creates pain. So being able to go ahead and give those tips of things that you don't kind of think about or realize that it's actually
Mhm.
affecting you, and even like stress. Stress also
Yeah.
causes inflammation in your body as well too. So then
Mm.
teaching different stress reduction techniques as well
Yes.
is
Yeah.
very crucial. So it's all those different pieces that I'm really just bringing to light and being like, hey, here you go. And then I'm also a Reiki energy healer as well. So I got that part.
Mhm.
So it's like I'm a multifaceted, person. It's like I don't use just one thing. I really just truly go through and dive into all the different pieces because unfortunately, it's all about mind, body, spirit, and also
Mhm.
emotional. And if any of those
Mhm.
pieces are, in flux, in fluke, you're done. So you got to go ahead and be able to take a look at all those pieces and then see how you can go ahead and make the adjustments.
Oh man, as a fellow multi-hyphenate, multifaceted, multi-talented human being, I honor you. That is amazing. I love that
So,
it's so personalized with each individual and really taking the time to listen and get the story and also from the jump being like, do you believe that? Cuz oh
mhm.
my goodness, right? If the
Yeah.
mindset isn't there, if the belief is not there, there's no freaking way
No,
that you're going
absolutely.
to heal.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's what I had recognized even with my journey because
Mm,
I was so down and out because like I had so many people saying to me, nope, nope, that's not gonna happen. Like you're just gonna have to deal with it. And I'm like, and my mind, my heart and soul were fighting it. And that was also making things worse for me too, because my mind and body was like, no, this is not it. But you're still hearing all these things, and this was like almost like a trigger for me from like childhood, from being teased and different things like that, where it's like, okay, you don't realize how all those different pieces come into play when you're going through something, and having to really heal those different triggers and things like that as well too. So I mean, it really, for me, was an all-encompassing healing journey that I'm still going through. You're always healing. That's one thing I'm like, it's a non-stop.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's like you can rest, but it will still be there when you're done. Like, it's like, here's your new trigger. Congratulations, you made it through this level. Now you gotta get to the next one. It's just like it's an ongoing thing, but it's like, I wouldn't trade it, for this, for everything that I've gone through. Is truly a testimony, of not only my courage and everything like that, but also my resiliency. And that's really what kind of brought into even the name of my business, is I'm chronically resilient. And it really is just based off of, play on words, just being like going through chronic pain and hearing so many people when I'm telling them my story, they're like, you're so resilient. You're so resilient. And I'm like, maybe we need to pull that in, with everything that we're doing. So, yeah. And then also too, I do not only just work with, one-on-one, I also do group coaching.
Okay.
I've been branching out now to different organizations, businesses, schools, and churches as well, just because of the education portion of it. So doing like workshops, lunch and learns, and also doing public speaking. Because even though I gave you a little bit more of the story, there's still more. There's
always.
We didn't have enough time for that, but probably another time if I, come back on here again, the other portions of it too, because I did, unfortunately, and I'll just say a little piece, during my journey, because I mentioned I was with the ex-boyfriend at the time when I had the accident that actually turned into a domestic violence situation that I had to go through. So, I mean, there's so many pieces that I really had to unfortunately go through and heal through as well. And so to share, just to show people that, number one, I don't look like what I've been through. I can tell you that right off the bat. Oftentimes I have people that talk to me and they ask me like, and I'll tell them the whole entire story, and they're like, but you're so young. They're like, you're only like, what are you, like 31? And I'm like, no, add 10 years. I'm actually 41. I'll be 42 this year. And they're like, what? They're like, you look really young. I'm like, well, it's about how you take care of yourself. And how you also recover from things as well, because a big piece is being able to process those emotions, because unfortunately you're processing the emotions and the trauma, and if you don't have the opportunity to do that, it does manifest itself in the body and come out as physical pain as well too. And so those are the other aspects that I work through with my clients as well, just to show them. And so, for example, I'll say, okay, let's see what your body's telling you. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you're telling me that your whole body's in pain. Let's go ahead and let's dive deeper. Let's kind of take a look, because your whole body actually is in pain. There might be a couple of spots that actually have more pain than others, but we need to figure out where that is. And so I actually have a program that I created because of that. That's called Transmute Your Pain. Where I
love that name. Yeah.
I teach them how to do breath work, meditation, body scan meditation, then also journaling. And then the last week is a mind-body integration. And what we're basically going through doing is just, taking a look at, okay, well, what areas of the body you're saying are actually having the most pain. So, for example, if a person has like a lot of upper neck and back issues, then we're going to go ahead and look at that and say, okay, well, what burdens are you holding on to that you haven't released? And then we go ahead and work through that and see, what is it? I say, hey, this is your journal prompt. We're going to go ahead and work through this and see what it is. And very often, they're noticing that reduction of pain just from them being able to finally express that and release that. And so that's another piece, that I just, recently came out with that particular program. I even started up now having candles to actually go with it as well too. So I have a Release Your Burdens candle, which actually is a Reiki infused organic candle. It also has aromatherapy attached to it too. So then that way they actually have the actual scent actually gives that release in the brain to do that. And then the other piece too that I've had a lot of clients mention to me is that, they're working on their self-love. And so I created an unconditional love candle, which is the same similar, thing where it's like, they're actually getting that aromatherapy aspect of it as well too, and are able to go ahead and work through that. So it's one of those things, like I said, chronic pain is so multifaceted and it's not a one size fits all solution. It really, affects every part of your lifestyle.
Oh my gosh, queen, I wanna be like you when I grow up. Goodness to gracious, so many beautiful offerings. I know my human design, I'm a sacral generator, so, like, I keep my vocalizations, I can't hold back. I'm just like, "Ooh,
Mhm.
as I just bought myself some candles, some candles yesterday. Gosh, and again, this uh, honestly, I think this was perfect timing. I know that we had to reschedule, but we just had that beautiful new moon in Cancer. Like, what better way to discuss and talk about, and this is one of my final questions I have for you, this Cancer energy of just taking care of yourself and nurturance. Now, you mentioned, right? You're a
Mhm.
mom. I'm a mom. A
Mhm.
lot of a lot of my community and clients are women and mothers, It's so hard for us, to really take the time to have that body awareness, to be able to
Mhm.
understand what is manifesting because of stress, because of caretaking, because of, you know, Emily and Amelia Nagoski talk about the human giver syndrome, right? As women, we're conditioned, and especially
Mhm.
as women of color, there's like an additional layer of that too, right? And just
Mhm.
having to work 2 3 times as hard to
Yeah.
just be at an even playing field. Like, what, how do you contend with, like, there's so many things, right, that we're
Mhm.
contending with.
No, absolutely. And the thing about it is that you have to make time for yourself. And
Mm,
I often say to my clients, even if it's you getting up 5 or 10 minutes early,
yes.
just to go ahead and have that peace and quiet. Because once you get the mom, it's over, and it's like, and you try to, work with that. And it also depends on the age and everything as well, too. Because oftentimes, if you're able to go ahead and start to incorporate your own self-care with your children. So for
Mm,
example, like I've taught my children, how to meditate. Some of them don't like it, some do. Like my youngest one will sit down and we'll meditate together. And we've been doing that since she was 5. Just being able to go ahead, and because that's when I started to learn about it. So I'm like, okay, if
mhm.
I'm learning this and you're looking at me like, what's mom doing? I'm like, well, come on, let's sit down. Let's go ahead, let's do this together. And so
Yeah.
like, we do that. I'm a crystal person. So yes, I've been holding the crystal the whole entire time that I've been
Mhm.
sitting here, as
Beautiful.
well, where I, share that, those tools, with my children, but also with clients as well too, which once again,
Mhm.
I don't force things on people. I just say, hey, here's
Sure.
something that you can go ahead and use. I had
Yep.
one client that I actually gave her a tiger's eye because of different
Mm.
things that she had going on in her life that I was like, hey, I think that this will really help you. And she used to just walk around like and holding it. She was a inpatient care, so she'd keep it in her pocket, and then like when she feels, she'll pull it out and she'll hold on to it, and then she'll breathe with it and
Yes.
everything. And so being able to go ahead and share those different tools, it's those same things that I do. I'm basically sharing the things that I do. To
Yep.
be honest, I'm not telling anyone to do something that I haven't tried myself,
Right.
but then like, hey, you know what, this might not work, but here, let's go ahead and have you try it type of a deal. But I
Mhm.
always say, that big thing is just taking time for self. Even if you just can breathe for a little bit, if you can do 5 minutes of breathing in the morning when you first get up, you'll be amazed at how much that can affect the rest of your day and how it's setting you up for having a good day for yourself as well too, and also getting on a specific routine.
Yeah.
If you have a steady routine, it not only helps the brain, but it's also helping your body as well too, because it's helping you to be able to go ahead and cope with everything else that's happening. So those are a couple of pieces, right off the bat that I would say,
Yeah.
within your control. And of course, the biggest number one thing, which I keep on making, and I don't get paid by this company, it'd be nice, but this water, alkaline water, making sure that you're staying hydrated.
Yes.
75% of people are chronically dehydrated.
Oof.
They're wondering why, these different things are happening to their bodies,
Mhm.
like because their body is screaming for some water, so
Mhm.
be able to go ahead and do that alone can definitely help. But then, being able to, from that point, start to kind of dive into other aspects, and whether it's, journaling and things of that nature, whatever helps be able to go ahead and release. And also to, have the proper support. Like I said, during my journey initially, I didn't have that support and I thought I was
Mm.
going crazy because, I didn't have anyone that to talk to say, hey, because
Right.
no one else was going through what I was going through. And I lost a lot of quote unquote friends, from
Mm.
my journey and everything. And then I also gained the right ones and the new ones. My community now is like, even though I kind of say my circle is a dot, but that's okay because it's always quality, over quantity. And being able to recognize that, you can have a proper support system and that you are in charge. you can go ahead and create, how you want things to be for yourself. And sometimes you kind of get caught in that trap of thinking that things have to be, this way. And it's like, well, no,
Sure.
you actually got to take that. And it can be scary. I'm not even going to lie. When you have to sit back and be like, okay, you know what? I am the problem, to be like, I have to hold
Yeah.
myself accountable now. Like I haven't been speaking up, or I haven't been doing, X, Y, Z. Now I have to go ahead and do baby steps to go ahead and get to where I want to be.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, such great, oh my gosh, fantastic tips. We're definitely going to have to bring you back on again, Serena, as someone who in my own life has done a lot of activist work with Sexual Assault Awareness Month and Domestic Violence Awareness
Yeah.
Month. We should definitely bring you back to share that part of the story.
Mhm.
Just thank you so much for your wisdom, your candor and sharing what you've been through, all of the amazing tips, and just in the short period of time, and also the programs that you have coming through. That sounds amazing. So where can folks find you? Where can we connect with you, check you out? Do you have anything coming up that folks should know about?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram. So my Instagram is I am chronically resilient. So that'd be the first place. Also,
Mhm.
can feel free to go ahead and shoot me an email, which my email is goalchasers2020@gmail.com. Right now, my website is under construction. Unfortunately, my web developer had COVID. So we had to take a step back and kind of like now we're kind of going back into
Yeah.
creating things and everything as well too. So those will definitely be the big places right now to be able to go ahead and find me. And then from there, of course, I'm available in the virtual world. So it's not one of those things where, just even though I'm in Wisconsin, I can travel. We can figure all that stuff out, and everything as well. But we can also go ahead and still, do the Zoom, whether however, way that I can be there. My running joke always is like, if you got Wi-Fi, you got me, so that way like you can't avoid me. So that way we can go ahead
That's
and
right.
definitely, work together as well. So those will be the couple of things. As I mentioned this morning, I just done an event earlier today for Men's Health Month. I am looking at doing an event actually in September, which is Chronic Pain Awareness Month. So I
Hmm.
am looking at getting that all together. So once I have that information, I definitely can share that with you as well too. So that way you can
Sure.
say, hey, this is what's going on, for now. And I definitely do like different little pop-up shops and things that happen like around the city and everything as well
Okay.
too. But I am, branching out more where I would love to do, more public speaking and things of that nature as well. So if you know of anyone that I could definitely, reach out to be able to go ahead and share the
Yes.
story, definitely let me know, as well.
Well, I definitely see it for you, Sarita, and as someone, I haven't met you in person, but just from our Facebook messages and this conversation, your energy is just so pervasive and it's just such a beautiful light. And I'm just so delighted that you were here to spend time and to share your wonderful story. And yes, we need to get you on more stages and more speaking engagements because a lot of folks need to hear your incredible resilience and tenacity and being able to spend this year and a half of, goodness to gracious, so much pain, on all levels, and then taking the initiative to empower yourself, to find the knowledge, to make changes, and to be where you are in just like 4 months time. That's
Right.
that's super profound and really inspiring.
Well, thank you. And I mean, I'm still doing the deep dives and everything too, because like, at this point, I'm on like a 0 or 1 on the pain scale. It just kind of depends on,
Mm,
different factors. Like if I didn't do what I'm supposed to do, because, I have my own
sure.
machine, but sometimes, life gets in there, too. And that's why
Right.
I say to people, like, I'm just like everyone else. I'm not like the
Mhm.
perfect person or anything. Like I have a glass of wine. I do like, I have all those
Yeah.
that too, but
Yeah.
like,
We're
I also
human.
have to, do the back end of it where it's like now, okay, and I have it where now I can actually sit back and say, okay, I didn't do this and this. That's why this is happening.
Sure.
And then
Sure.
I can
Yeah.
go ahead and, versus, other people might not know that. And they're like, okay, well, I don't
Yeah.
know why this is happening. Why, why are these things occurring? So it's really just truly, helping you get back into your own intuition and knowing who you are as a person and where
Mm.
you were at, where, unfortunately you kind of hit a roadblock, but that's okay. Because it's like you still have that time available that now you can go ahead and, use that information for good for yourself and be able to move forward.
Mm. Oh, what a beautiful note to end on. I will be sure to put all of your information, Sarita, in the show notes here. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, folks that will be watching this and the replay. Be sure to reach out to Sarita. Obviously, she has so much to share, and we will definitely bring you back on at some point. And until then, take care of each other. Tap into that intuition. As I said, we're recording this during Cancer season. So hopefully, we'll see you guys back again soon, and take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.